The story opens under a scorching Arizona sun in the 1870s. Dust rolls across the wide plains like smoke, and in the distance, a wagon rattles along a narrow canyon road. Inside that wagon sits Evelyn Carter, a young woman of 21, pale and trembling. Her hands are tied, her dress torn and her lips dry and cracked from thirst. She was the daughter of a preacher who had come west with dreams of building a church in a land that didn't want saving. But after her father's death, the men of the nearby fort decided she was a burden. They accused her of spying for the Apache, false charges meant to rid themselves of another hungry mouth. The captain gave the order. Take her to the Blood Hunter's land. Let him decide her fate. The name Blood Hunter wasn't a legend, it was a warning. The soldiers whispered it in their camps. Mothers in settlements used it to scare their children. He was said to be a spirit of vengeance, an Apache warrior who had hunted men for killing his family. Some said he drank their blood, others that he spoke to wolves. His real name was Taza, son of the great chief Nantan, but the white settlers only knew the stories. The fear. When Evelyn is left at the edge of the desert, the wagon drives away, its wheels kicking dust into her face. She stands alone, the horizon a shimmering line between life and death. Her only possession is her mother's small locket engraved with a single word: faith. She begins to walk, her boots sinking into the burning sand. Each step is agony. The heat blinds her. She hears coyotes howling as night falls and feels the creeping terror of being abandoned in a land that doesn't forgive weakness. By the second day, her body gives up. She collapses beside a dry creek bed, lips bleeding, her vision swimming in gold and crimson. The wind whispers through the rocks, and before she passes out, she sees a dark figure on horseback, bare-chested, skin painted with red clay and blue ash, long hair flowing behind him. In her delirium, she thinks death has come for her at last. She murmurs, "Please, let it be quick," but when she wakes, she's not dead. She's lying inside a dim, smoke-scented cave. A fire crackles beside her, and a blanket made of animal hide is draped over her body. Her wrists are free. The stranger kneels near the fire, grinding herbs in a small stone bowl. He looks at her once, his gaze sharp, assessing, and says nothing. His presence fills the cave like a storm waiting to break. She realizes this must be the one they called Blood Hunter. Fear coils in her chest. She tries to speak, but her throat is raw. He hands her a small clay cup filled with warm liquid, bitter but life-giving. When she hesitates, he says, his English thick with accent, "Drink, or you die." She obeys, tears sliding down her cheeks. The warmth spreads through her, and she feels her body returning from the edge. As the night deepens, she listens to the sounds of the desert, owls crackling fire, and the quiet rhythm of the man's breathing. He doesn't ask who she is nor why she was left there. He simply tends to her wounds, feeds her, and remains silent. There's no cruelty in his eyes, only the cautious patience of a man who has seen too much betrayal to trust easily. The next morning, she wakes to find him outside, skin gleaming in dawn's light as he sharpens a blade near a stream. He moves with a kind of quiet power, like a wolf who knows every stone of his territory. When she steps out, weak but determined, he glances over. "You go back," he says flatly. "White men's land. Not safe here," she shakes her head. "They'll kill me." Her voice cracks. "They already tried." For the first time, his eyes soften. He studies her face, the dirt, the exhaustion, the stubborn spark that hasn't died even after everything. Finally, he says, "Then you stay, until you walk strong." That moment marks the first fragile bridge between them, a silent truce born not from trust, but from shared exile. She begins to help him with small tasks, gathering wood, boiling herbs, cleaning her own bandages. Though they speak little, she learns his rhythm, the way he greets the dawn with prayer, the way he watches the land as if listening to its heartbeat. Over time, she discovers that the Blood Hunter name came not from cruelty, but from his vow to protect his people after a massacre. He hunted those responsible, not for bloodlust, but justice. When he speaks of it, his voice carries a weight that silences even the wind. Evelyn sees the sorrow beneath his strength and realizes that, like her, he was cast out by those he once trusted. One night, a storm rolls through the desert, lightning splitting the sky. Evelyn wakes in fear, clutching her blanket, only to see him sitting at the cave's mouth calm, watching the rain like it's an old friend. She joins him, trembling. You're not afraid of it? She asks. He turns slightly, his eyes reflecting the firelight. Fear wastes breath. Storms pass, that simple truth stays with her. For the first time since her father's death, she feels the faint stir of hope. Hope that she might survive, and maybe one day, belong somewhere again. The days after the storm settle into a rhythm of quiet survival. The desert that once seemed merciless now feels alive to Evelyn. Its mornings painted in gold, its nights alive with stars like lanterns spilled across the heavens. She begins to move through this land with new eyes, guided by the man they called the Blood Hunter, though she now knows his true name, Taza. He doesn't speak often, but when he does, his words carry weight. He teaches her how to find water by following the tracks of birds, how to use cactus fruit for both food and healing, and how to move silently so as not to disturb the spirits of the desert. She listens, learns, and slowly begins to shed the fragile girl who had arrived dying at his feet. At first, Taza treats her like a guest, a wounded creature he has taken in until she can walk away. But Evelyn senses something in him beyond stoic strength, a loneliness that mirrors her own. His eyes often drift toward the distant ridges as if he sees ghosts there. Once, when she asks him about his family, his voice turns low and hollow. They died in a raid, he says simply. Bluecoats came in the night, took fire to the tents, took my brother's son, took my mother's breath. She falls silent, tears burning in her throat. She doesn't press him again. It's around this time that she begins to repay his kindness in small, quiet ways. She repairs his old shirt with thread she found in her dress hem. She gathers herbs and begins to cook, using what little she remembers from her mother's recipes. When he returns one evening from hunting and finds the cave filled with the smell of roasted rabbit and sage, he pauses at the entrance, uncertain, almost shy. Evelyn, nervous, gestures toward the fire. I thought, you might be hungry. He steps closer, crouches, and studies the food like it's some new kind of magic. Then, to her surprise, he smiles, and faint but real. You learn fast, he says. Not many women would touch desert root. Bitter taste, she grins back. Maybe I'm not most women. His eyes flicker toward her, and for a heartbeat, the silence between them feels alive, charged with something neither of them dares to name. As the days stretch into weeks, Evelyn grows stronger. She begins to help with hunting, though Taza is wary at first. He teaches her to use a bow, adjusting her hands gently on the string. His fingers brush hers, rough and warm, and her breath catches. He doesn't seem to notice the way her pulse quickens, but when their eyes meet, something unspoken passes, the kind of understanding that doesn't need words. Still, his walls remain high. Whenever she asks why he stays alone in the canyon, he turns away. My people are gone. White men took the land. Only spirits remain. But Evelyn refuses to believe he's only a shadow of his past. She sees the way he cares for the land, the way he pauses to free a trapped bird, or the way he leaves a portion of his kill for the wolves. To her, these are not the acts of a man lost to bitterness, but of one still tied to mercy. One evening, while gathering firewood, Evelyn stumbles upon a half-buried charm, a beaded amulet shaped like a coyote's head. She brings it to Taza. His expression changes instantly. His jaw tightens and he takes it with trembling hands. This was my brother's, he says quietly. He wore it when he died. Her heart aches for him. I can bury it if you wish, she offers softly. He shakes his head. No, you found it. Maybe the land gives it back, because you are meant to stay. The meaning behind those words lingers long after he walks away. That night, as the fire crackles and the stars burn brighter than ever, Evelyn finds herself unable to sleep. She watches him across the fire, the way his face softens when he's unaware, the scars that tell the story of a life lived in battle and solitude. She realizes she is no longer afraid of him. Instead, she feels safe, safer than she's ever felt in any white man's town, behind any preacher's sermon. When the cold creeps into the canyon that night, she wakes to find him placing an extra blanket over her shoulders. His touch is careful, respectful, yet it sends warmth straight through her chest. You should sleep, he murmurs. She meets his gaze and whispers, Thank you for everything. He hesitates, as if searching for the right words, then replies simply, You would have done the same. In that moment, Evelyn understands something profound. Taza doesn't see her as weak or broken. He sees her as an equal, a survivor. And that understanding begins to change everything between them. The next morning, she insists on helping him track a wounded deer through the rocks. The climb is steep, the sun relentless, but she keeps up with him. At one point, she slips, cutting her hand on a sharp stone. He's beside her in an instant, wrapping it with a strip of cloth torn from his own sleeve. When she tries to protest, he silences her with a look. "You bleed," he says softly, "but you stand. That is strength." Her eyes fill with tears, not from pain, but from the rare kindness in his tone. By the time they return to the cave, the air between them feels different, no longer filled with wary distance but quiet understanding. He no longer tells her to leave. She no longer dreams of going. Together they fall into a rhythm that feels almost like peace. One night, as they sit by the fire, she hums an old hymn her father used to sing, low and haunting. The melody drifts through the cave like smoke. When she finishes, she finds Taza watching her with an expression she can't quite read. "What does it mean?" he asks. "It's about home," she says softly. "And forgiveness." He nods slowly. "Then sing again. The land should hear." She does. And this time, as her voice fills the canyon, he closes his eyes as if the song is washing years of grief away. And though neither says it aloud, both know something has changed forever. The woman they sent to die in the desert is no longer dying, and the blood hunter who once lived only for vengeance has begun to feel his heart beat again. By the time the third moon has passed over the canyon, Evelyn's fear of the desert has turned into reverence. She knows the rhythm of its winds, the scent of approaching rain, and the sound of coyotes that call each other across the stone ridges. Life has become simple and sacred. Mornings spent gathering herbs and tending to the fire. Afternoons spent learning to shoot a bow, and nights filled with quiet talk and the steady heartbeat of the earth beneath them. She and Taza have grown into something wordless but real. They move around each other with instinct. She hands him water before he asks. He brings her small gifts without explanation. A smooth stone shaped like a heart, a feather from a hawk. When their hands brush, neither pulls away anymore. The silence between them is full of warmth, not fear, but peace in the desert is fragile. One morning, the sound of distant hooves shatters their quiet world. Taza stiffens instantly, rising from his crouch near the fire. His expression hardens, every muscle alert. Evelyn watches his face, fear returning like a shadow she thought she'd left behind. He moves toward the edge of the canyon, scanning the horizon. The wind carries the sound, not the quiet rhythm of one horse, but many. "Soldiers. They found you," he says flatly. Her stomach twists. "They think I'm dead." Taza shakes his head. "White men hunt ghosts too if they fear them." Within moments, his instincts take over. He leads her deeper into the canyon, into a hidden cleft between the rocks where the walls narrow and curve like the inside of a shell. He tells her to stay quiet, his voice calm but firm. She nods, heart pounding. From their hiding place, she can see the dust cloud rise. A dozen riders in blue coats, rifles glinting in the sun. Their leader, Captain Roland, dismounts and surveys the area. Evelyn recognizes him instantly, the man who'd ordered her exile. His face is carved from stone, but she can still see the same cold cruelty in his eyes. One of the soldiers calls out, "Captain, there's signs of a fire here. Someone's been living." Roland's lip curls. "Then maybe the savage kept her. We'll smoke him out." Taza's eyes narrow. His hand tightens around his knife. Evelyn grabs his arm, whispering, "Please, don't fight them. They'll kill you." He glances at her, his gaze calm but burning. "I do not fear death, but I will not let them take what is under my care." The word strikes something deep in her, to under my care. No one has ever spoken of her like that before. Not even her father. Not as a possession, but as a promise. Before she can stop him, he moves out into the open, silent as the wind. The soldiers don't see him at first. He stands tall on a rock ledge, painted with the same red and blue markings that had once terrified her. To the soldiers below, he looks like a ghost risen from the earth. Captain Roland shouts, "There! The blood hunter!" Rifles rise, but Taza raises his hand. "You leave," he calls, voice deep and commanding. "The woman is not yours." Evelyn's breath catches, he's revealing her presence. Roland laughs, cold and cruel. She was never yours either, Savage. The law says she's a runaway. We're taking her back. Taza doesn't move. Then you must pass through me. A single shot cracks through the canyon. The sound echoes like thunder. Evelyn screams as Taza staggers back, blood darkening his shoulder. The soldiers shout, scattering for cover. Without thinking, she rushes from her hiding place, stumbling through dust and smoke until she reaches him. "Taza!" she cries, grabbing his arm. He grits his teeth, holding his wound, but his eyes never leave the soldiers. More shots ring out. Taza pulls her behind a rock, his breath sharp with pain. "Stay down," he orders. But Evelyn, trembling and furious, grabs the rifle from his side. "I won't hide anymore." He stares at her, and in that heartbeat he sees the fire in her that matches his own. She aims, fires, and the echo sends the soldiers scattering backward. She misses, but it's enough to make them hesitate. Then, with the grace of a predator, Taza moves, darting between the rocks, silent and deadly despite his injury. He knocks one rifle aside, disarms another man, and vanishes into the shadows. The soldiers panic, firing wildly. Evelyn uses the chaos to drag Taza's small pouch of gunpowder toward the fire. When she throws it, the explosion rocks the canyon. Smoke and confusion fill the air. The soldiers retreat, shouting orders. Captain Rowland glares into the haze, his voice full of venom. "You can keep her, Savage." "She's as damned as you are." He spits in the dirt before riding off with his men. When the sound of hooves fades, the silence feels deafening. Evelyn runs to where Taza kneels by the rocks, blood dripping from his shoulder. She presses her hands against the wound, tears streaming down her face. "You saved me again," she whispers. He shakes his head weakly. "You saved yourself. And me?" They stay like that until the sun begins to set, the desert around them glowing red as if painted by fire. She helps him back to the cave, tears and dust streaking her face. When she finally cleans and binds his wound, her hands tremble. Not from fear, but from the realization that she can't lose him. Not now. Not after everything. As night falls, he lies near the fire, pale but steady. Evelyn sits beside him, holding his hand. "They'll come back," she says softly. "They won't stop until they kill us both." Taza's gaze drifts toward her, weary but certain. "Then we leave this place, far from their reach. There are lands where the wind is still free. We go there." She nods, tears glistening in the firelight. "I'll go wherever you go." For a long moment he studies her. The courage in her eyes, the quiet faith that hasn't broken even after exile, fear and blood. His voice drops to a whisper. "Then you are no longer a stranger here. You are home." Outside, the desert wind rises again, carrying away the last traces of gunpowder and fear. The same land that once condemned her has now bound her to him. Two souls cast out by the world, finding shelter in each other. That night, Evelyn dreams not of fire or death, but of a new dawn, one where she walks beside him through a land that belongs to neither race nor law, but only to love and the wind. The dawn after the battle rises quiet and heavy. The smell of smoke still lingers in the canyon, and the ground bears the marks of the soldiers' horses. Evelyn wakes beside the dying fire, her hand still resting near Taza's arm. His wound is wrapped carefully, but his skin burns with fever. She dips a cloth in cool water from a clay pot and lays it across his forehead, whispering, "You promised to take me north. You're not leaving me now." For the first time, she realizes what she means to him and what he means to her. The thought terrifies her, but it also gives her a strength she didn't know she had. When Taza opens his eyes, the fever light fading from them, his first words are not of pain, but of protection. "We must leave," he says hoarsely, "before the soldiers come again. They know this land now." Evelyn helps him stand. He's weak but stubborn, leaning on her shoulder. Together they pack what little they have: dried meat, water skins, herbs, and a single blanket. Taza leaves behind the cave that had been his home for years, pausing once to look back at the fire pit, now cold. "Spirits will remember," he murmurs. "This place saved us." The journey north is slow and grueling. The desert stretches endlessly, shimmering beneath a merciless sun. But Evelyn no longer sees it as an enemy. Each mile feels like a heartbeat. One step further from the world that tried to kill her, one step closer to freedom. At night, they camp beneath the stars, wrapped in the same blanket, their backs pressed together against the cold. He teaches her to listen to the night sounds, the song of the coyote, the soft rustle of a hawk's wings. She teaches him hymns from her childhood, and though he doesn't understand every word, he listens as if the music carries the language of her soul. Days blend into nights. His wound heals slowly, but she sees how he hides his pain, proud even when his strength falters. One evening, as they rest beside a riverbank, she kneels before him, cleaning the scar on his shoulder. "You can't protect me if you don't let me care for you," she says firmly. Taza's gaze softens. "You have the heart of a warrior," he says quietly. "Your spirit stands even when your body trembles." Her lips curve into a faint smile. "Then maybe I was meant to find you, not to be saved, but to stand beside you." He studies her for a long moment, then nods once, a small gesture, but full of meaning. For the first time, she sees the man behind the legend, not the blood hunter, not the feared Apache, but a man who loves deeply and silently, who carries pain and honor in equal measure. As they move north, the land begins to change. The red canyons give way to mesas and valleys where wildflowers bloom between stones. Yet danger follows them still. They pass abandoned outposts, burned wagons, and signs of skirmishes between settlers and tribes. The world beyond the canyon is no less cruel. One afternoon, they encounter a group of white settlers traveling west. Evelyn's heart pounds as they approach, uncertain how they'll react to her walking beside an Apache. The leader, a weary woman with 2 small children, eyes them warily but doesn't draw her gun. "You folks look like you've come a long way," she says. Evelyn forces a smile. "We have. We're just passing through." The woman nods, studying Taza's calm posture and the quiet protectiveness in his stance. "The world's changing," she mutters. "Maybe one day folks will stop shooting each other long enough to see who's human." It's the first kindness Evelyn has seen from a stranger in months. The woman gives them bread and water before parting ways. Taza says little, but later that night as they eat by the fire, he says softly, "There is good among your people still." She looks at him across the flames. "And in yours. But both sides are blind with fear." He nods slowly. "Fear builds walls. Love breaks them." Her breath catches at the word, love. He said it so simply, as though it were just another truth of the desert. She doesn't answer, but the warmth that spreads through her chest says everything words cannot. The next day, they reach the foothills where pine trees replace cacti and streams run clear and cold. Taza tells her there's a valley beyond, land untouched by settlers where they might build a life far from violence. But before they can rest, another challenge finds them. As they cross a narrow ridge, a shot rings out, echoing through the cliffs. Bandits. 3 men appear from the rocks, rifles aimed. "Easy now," one sneers. "Just hand over your packs and the girl." Evelyn freezes. Taza steps in front of her, his knife flashing in the sun. "You'll touch neither," he says, voice like stone. The leader laughs. "Brave words, savage. You think she belongs to you?" Evelyn's fear turns to fury. She steps beside Taza, chin high. "I belong to no one," she says fiercely. "But I stand with him." The men hesitate, surprised by her defiance. In that heartbeat, Taza moves, swift as lightning. He throws his knife, striking the leader's arm. The man drops his rifle, cursing. Evelyn grabs the second rifle from the ground, aiming it at the others. Her hands don't shake this time. "Go," she says. Before I remember how to shoot straight, the bandits retreat, muttering, vanishing into the rocks. When the danger passes, Evelyn lowers the gun, breathing hard. Taza turns to her, his expression unreadable. "You should have stayed behind me," he says quietly. She shakes her head. "I've hidden long enough. You said fear builds walls. I'm done living behind them." For a long moment, he says nothing. Then he reaches out, brushing a lock of hair from her face. "You have fire," he murmurs. "The land will remember you." That night, they make camp beneath tall pines. The air smells of rain and earth. Evelyn sits close to him, her head resting against his shoulder. For the first time, she feels not like a guest in his world, but his equal. As the firelight flickers, Taza finally speaks the truth that's been growing between them. "When I first saw you in the desert, I thought you were a spirit, one come to lead me to death. But you brought me back to life." Tears fill her eyes. "And you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope." He takes her hand in his, rough fingers brushing her palm. Then we walk forward together. Whatever comes. They fall asleep that night, wrapped in each other's warmth, the desert wind whispering through the trees. And though the road ahead remains uncertain, Evelyn knows this. She was sent to die, but instead, she found a man whose heart was stronger than any legend, and a love born from the dust and blood of the earth itself. The next dawn breaks over the mountains, their light painting the sky in gold. They rise hand in hand, ready to face whatever the world dares to bring. By the time they reach the valley Taza spoke of, the sun has begun to soften behind the mountains, a golden crown fading into violet shadows. The air smells of pine and sage, the river glitters like molten glass, and for the first time in months, Evelyn feels peace settle into her bones. She stands on the ridge, gazing at the land below, endless meadows, tall grass swaying like ocean waves, and the faint cry of an eagle above. It feels like the world itself has opened its arms. Taza watches her quietly. "This was my father's land," he says. "Before the soldiers came, before the blood. I thought it was lost forever." Evelyn turns to him, her eyes soft. "Then let's take it back. Not with war, but with life." They descend into the valley and make camp near the river. The days that follow are unlike any before. Not filled with fear or flight, but building, creating, belonging. Evelyn helps gather wood and stone. Taza constructs a small shelter with his hands, every movement steady and sure. When it's finished, it's not just a home. It's a promise carved into the land itself. They plant seeds in the soft earth near the water. Beans, corn, and wild herbs Taza knows will thrive here. He teaches her to fish, to weave baskets from reeds, to listen to the river's moods. She, in turn, brings music into their world. Her soft humming drifts through the valley at dusk, blending with the song of crickets and the crackle of their evening fire. One afternoon, while Taza mends a fishing net, Evelyn walks barefoot through the grass, her white dress fluttering in the breeze. The sunlight catches her hair, turning it to gold. When she turns and sees him watching her, she smiles, not shyly, but with quiet certainty. She belongs here, with him, in this untamed, holy place. That night they sit beside the fire, the valley cloaked in moonlight. The air is cool, the stars so close they seem within reach. Evelyn leans against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "It feels like the world has forgotten us," she murmurs. Taza's arm curls around her waist. "Good," he says softly. "The world took enough. Now it leaves us to live." His words settle deep in her heart. She closes her eyes, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her cheek. It's the sound of safety, of love that doesn't need to be spoken to be real. Over time, the valley becomes their sanctuary. Deer graze near the river. Flowers bloom in colors she's never seen, and each sunrise feels like a blessing. Evelyn learns the language of the land, the way clouds gather before rain, the whisper of the wind when it carries warning. Taza watches her with quiet pride. "You walk like one born to the earth," he tells her. She laughs softly. "Then the earth must love you because it gave me back my life through you." Their bond deepens with each passing day. Sometimes they speak of the past, of the pain and loss that brought them here. But mostly they live in the present, grateful for each small moment. A shared smile, a brush of hands, the sound of laughter echoing against the cliffs. Still, life in the valley isn't without its trials. One morning a storm rolls through, fierce and wild. The wind tears at their roof, the river swells, and trees bend under the fury of rain. Evelyn rushes to secure the garden while Taza strengthens the shelter. Thunder cracks overhead, and for a moment she feels fear grip her chest again, fear of losing the fragile peace they've built. Then Taza's voice cuts through the storm, steady and calm. "Storms pass," he says, the same words he spoke the night she first met him in the cave. Hearing them now, she smiles through the rain, heart full. When the storm finally ends, the valley glows fresh and alive, washed clean. The air smells of wet grass and new beginnings. Taza walks to her side, his hair damp, his hand finding hers. "The land tests those who claim it," he says. "Now it knows we are strong. Weeks turn into months. Seasons shift. Evelyn marks the passage of time not by calendars, but by the flowers that bloom and fade, the songs of the birds that return each spring. She no longer dreams of towns or churches or laws. Her faith now lives in the soil, in the man beside her, in the simple miracle of being alive when she was meant to die. One evening, as twilight paints the sky in shades of rose and gold, Taza disappears into the forest and returns with something hidden in his hands. He kneels before her by the fire, his dark eyes glowing in the light. When he opens his palms, she gasps. A small necklace made of turquoise and bone, carved into the shape of a bird in flight. "This belonged to my mother," he says quietly. "She gave it to me the day I became a warrior. I give it now to you, not as gift, but as truth. Her eyes fill with tears. What truth? That you are my heart, my home. For a long moment, neither speaks. The only sound is the whisper of the wind through the grass and the river murmuring in the distance. Then Evelyn leans forward and presses her forehead against his. And you, she whispers, are my freedom. He ties the necklace around her neck, his fingers trembling slightly. She feels its weight, not heavy, but sacred, like a vow sealed by the desert itself. That night, they share their first true embrace beneath the open sky, their souls bound by the same earth that once tried to destroy them. There is no ceremony, no words, only the quiet understanding that they belong to each other and to this land that finally gave them peace. As the months pass, their love deepens into something timeless. They build a small home of wood and stone, surrounded by fields that bloom under their care. When Evelyn holds her first harvest in her hands, golden corn shining in the sunlight, she feels tears of joy. We did it, she says softly. We made life out of death. Taza smiles, brushing dirt from her cheek. No, the earth did. We just listened. Years later, travelers passing through the valley speak of a hidden place where the land is untouched and a woman with golden hair lives with a tall Apache warrior, where the smoke from their hearth rises straight into the heavens like a prayer that never ends. They say the woman was once left in the desert to die, but the desert, it seems, chose instead to give her love, and in doing so, redeemed itself. And so the legend changes. The blood hunter is no longer a name of fear, but of protection. The woman is no longer a ghost of exile, but the spirit of life reborn. Together they are the proof that even in the harshest corners of the world, love can take root and bloom, be strong, wild, and forever free. As the sun sets over their valley, Evelyn stands by the river, the turquoise bird resting warm against her skin. Taza comes to her side, their fingers intertwining. She looks up at him and smiles. We were both sent to die, she says softly, and instead we found forever. He nods, his gaze sweeping the horizon. The land remembers, he says, and so will the stars. Hand in hand, they watch the last light fade. Two souls who walked through fire and found their way home together beneath the endless sky of the West.